going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today's going to be kind of part two of the mechanic story video that I posted a little while back. Today's going to be more focused on the places that I've worked as a mechanic. I might actually just go ahead and throw in some other places I've worked as well, just to kind of remember the timeline a little bit. So, I had kind of mentioned in the previous video, in high school was when I got my first job. I started working at the bowling alley in the town that I live in here. And I worked there for a couple years before I got my first car job, which was Valvoline Instant Oil Change. It was about, the location I worked at was about a 30-minute drive away from my house, so that kind of sucked. But I really liked the people that I worked with, and I picked up, I wouldn't say that I necessarily picked up a lot of knowledge there, but I definitely picked up experience, especially with oil changes, because that's obviously what they're doing all day long, back to back to back. So, when I started working there, I was working as I call it the downstairs guy. The guy who pulls out the drain plug, changes out the filter, all of that sort of stuff. There was other stuff that you would do as a downstairs guy, but they would only let you do it if you had experience. And some of those things would be fuel filters, all boxes, they called it, which would be your front differential, transfer case, and rear differential fluids on four-wheel drive trucks. And they would also do transmission fluid services where the filter would get replaced and we would pull the pan off and replace the gasket. I'm not 100% sure if they still do those anymore or if they just do the ones where you use the transmission flush machine and you hook it up with the transmission cooler lines. But at that time, those were some of the things that they wouldn't necessarily let a new guy do. And when they were first starting to let you do that sort of stuff, they would definitely supervise over you. Um, Before I worked there, I already knew how to do an oil change. Now I didn't have the experience of doing oil changes on multiple different vehicles, but I had the concept of an oil change down. But I definitely did learn fuel filter replacements, the differential and transfer case fluid replacement. I mean, realistically, that stuff's not that much different from an oil change, but it was something that I hadn't really been exposed to yet. So I was definitely glad to have the opportunity to learn those other aspects of the car and those other services. So eventually, they saw that I had the initiative to learn and to do more stuff. So they moved me to what I call the upstairs guy. And that actually came with a 50-cent raise. I was making when I started at the bowling alley, I was making $6.75 an hour. Now, granted, this was back in 2008, long, long time ago. Prices and wages and stuff were way different than they are now. Minimum wage went up twice while I worked there, and that was the only time that I got a raise at that place. I got a 25-cent raise from just switching jobs over to Valvoline, and I believe that I was making $7.50 an hour when I started. So I had gone up by basically 75 cents an hour from when I started working. And so once I went to the upstairs guy, I went to $8 an hour. So that was pretty nice. And honestly, the job was significantly easier. I would say that there was a little less on the learning side because all I had to do was fill up the oil, check the other fluids, check the air filter, and that's pretty much it for the most part. But the pay raise was nice, the job was easier, and just overall, I liked the position better. Unfortunately, I did end up having a disagreement with somebody that worked there who actually wasn't even my boss. He was kind of a substitute boss for the day. We kind of got into a disagreement, And unfortunately, that was the end of me working there. But thankfully, it didn't take me too long, and I ended up getting another job at National Tire and Battery, or NTB. I believe it not too long ago got bought out or something by Big O Tire. But that job was a little closer to me, so thankfully that was nice. And it was a real shop this time, lifts, ASE certified techs. And I started working as a tire guy, and I'm pretty sure that I started out either making the same as what I was making at Tires Plus, or not Tires Plus, but Valvoline, and I might have had a 50-cent raise from getting that job. But there is where I learned how to do tires. I learned how to, mount and balance. I learned how to rack up a car and put it on the lift. I did obviously a lot of oil changes, air filters, basic maintenance stuff, but I learned how to basically fill out the inspection sheet. I learned how to check different things on the vehicle. Not that I didn't know all this stuff before. It wasn't that I learned the stuff. It was that I learned the process of the stuff. Check this, this, and this. Write up what's wrong with it. Give it back to the service advisor so they can recommend more stuff. And then you can do more work and hopefully make more money. And so that was definitely something that I picked up while I was there. I did eventually switch to a different location, and at that location, it was still the same company, just a different location. I kind of started getting a few more jobs. I think they let me do maybe like one or two brake jobs while I was there, but I mainly started learning alignments, and I was actually starting to kind of get the hang of that. I did a handful of alignments, and unfortunately, I had an accident in a customer's vehicle. I was pulling up on the alignment rack, and I was kind of out the window like this, trying to guide myself in on the turn plates, and I had my foot on the brake, and it just slipped off of the pedal, and it hit the gas pedal and just smacked right into I call it the T tower, is basically the little sensors that monitor the wheel angles, and it actually bent the tower back like that. And unfortunately, they did decide to let me go for that, which was totally understandable. I would have probably learned or gotten the hang of alignments much sooner had that not happened. And then after leaving that job, I did have a period of unemployment. I ended up going to work for a company that my stepdad worked for a little while, and learned how to do hardwood floors. Totally outside of my wheelhouse, but it's definitely a skill that I picked up, and I do know how to do it. Now, I would definitely need some refreshers on it, and I was never really good at setting the straight line as far as like where you begin, and if you mess that up, you mess up the entire floor. I do know that. Once the straight line is set and we know it's good, I can lay that whole floor out, bang it out, and we're good to go. But it's been so many years since I've done that. And ultimately, my stepdad left the company, and shortly after, they kind of let me go because of that, which, whatever. I'm not going to throw their names out there, but not big fans of them for that particular circumstance. But anyway, after that, I ended up working at a temp agency for a while. They had me working at a train place. Basically, I was working on train axles, wheels, bearings, that kind of stuff. And it was back in the mechanical field. It was cool to learn about all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I wanted to get back into cars. And so at the first opportunity, I did that. I ended up applying at Tires Plus. And Tires Plus, I started out working there at, I want to say it was $10 an hour. So I got another raise again. And, from that point on is when I really bumped it up as far as my learning, because I worked with a couple guys that really knew a lot of stuff, and they were, willing to be patient with me because they could tell that I was willing to learn and I really wanted to, make a career out of this. So they taught me a lot of stuff. I learned brakes, like proficient at brakes. I could bang them out while I was at Tires Plus. Alignments, no problem. I could do that on just about any vehicle. There was some big jobs that I did. I did a couple power steering racks. I did a couple oil pans. Like, I basically just started doing all kinds of stuff because I knew that these couple guys there had my back if I ran into an issue, if I needed to borrow a tool, whatever the case may be. I just felt like I had this major insurance policy behind me. Plus, I'm working for a big company, so worst case scenario, you screw something up, they're gonna take care of it. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily saying that you should, screw up on their dime, but if you're gonna make a bunch of mess ups, or any mess ups for that matter, in your career, make it there when you're working for a big company and they have the finances to absorb that kind of a mess up. But luckily, I didn't mess up too much. But I'm just saying, I wasn't scared to try stuff because I had that insurance policy behind me. All those different things that basically were going to bail me out if I messed up. So because of that, I started acquiring a few more tools, got my own toolbox. I actually got something just like this, except it's the red one that's out in my van. And just started doing a lot more jobs while I was there. I worked there for about 2.5 years, and then that's when I became a mobile mechanic. Sorry, I had to get a drink of water there. So I was looking on Craigslist and I found a company that does mobile mechanic stuff, and they were looking for someone in my area. And so I ended up, signing on with them, and been a mobile mechanic ever since. It's been about 7.5, almost 8 years now. Um, as you guys know, I am in the process still of trying to do my own thing, but for right now, the mobile mechanic thing over the last several years, I'll definitely say was very worthwhile to make the switch. If any of you guys are still working in a shop, I would recommend at least giving it a shot. I went from, 6.75 an hour to now I currently make 48. I don't say that to brag. It took many, 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 many years to get to this point. Lots of stress, frustration, hard times, lots of learning, lots of extra hours put in to get to that point. And just because I make that per hour does not mean that I make a whole lot in a year. I kind of feel like ever since I switched to mobile mechanic, I make about the same and I just work a lot less. It's a trade off. It is what it is. I'm trying to bump that up, get my income up. But, ultimately at the end of the day, regardless of how much I make, I have complete control of my schedule and my time. I control my life. I am the boss of me. And that is invaluable. So, been on here for a little while. I may have skipped a few details here and there. I didn't want to make the video too long. I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the places that I've worked, because I know some of you guys wanted to hear the story on that. But like I said, it definitely, if any of you guys are considering becoming a mobile mechanic in your area, it is definitely worth a shot. If you got a bunch of tools and you've been at a shop for a while, you got most of your ASEs, and I don't want to say you feel like you're the shit, but definitely have a good head on your shoulders when it comes to the automotive knowledge. Being your own boss is powerful. I mean, it definitely has its big downsides, but there's ups and downs to just about anything. So I'd definitely recommend giving it a shot if you're in that position. I know it's not for everybody, but I definitely think it was for me. I'm very happy to be my own boss, no longer be a W-2 employee making someone else rich. Very happy to, regardless of making a lot or making a little, if I'm making it on my own, that's what counts. Stay tuned for the next video, and I will see you guys next time.